Hey Computer, play About Bees podcast.
Okay, everybody, we're back again with another episode of About Bees, Culture, and Curiosity with Ron Miksha and
Bidzina Mosiashvili.
And what are we doing today?
Today we're going to be discussing some various bee-related news in the world, current and some not very current.
Okay.
And then later we'll delve into some pop culture.
Okay, that actually sounds like it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Pop culture, too. I also have a paper that I'd like us to be discussing a little bit. It's written by a bunch of Canadian researchers, so it's very relevant as to how the bees in general are doing, including the wild bees. So it's kind of an ecology type paper.
Okay.
So we'll just kind of summarize, talk about it, chat about it a little bit. It's just some of our ideas about it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, but before we do any of that, I think we deserve to have people who are watching this see a little bit of our background in a little more detail. We actually do keep bees. I work around all kinds of bees. I'm a director of the Alberta Native Bee Council, so I love all the little pollinators, and including butterflies and so on.
Yeah,
but
hummingbirds?
Hummingbirds, they're kind of cool. They're amazing little creatures, but we do want to focus on bees, of course. And I thought it would be really nice if you had an opportunity, Bidzina, to talk a little bit about things going on among your own hives. We're into summer here in Calgary, Alberta, and things are happening. So I'm just kind of curious if you could make some comments about how you're keeping your bees and where they are right now, and just a little bit about your background.
Right. So this first picture here is my first year in 2020, and behind me there's about 21 beehives, and this was located in Foremost, Alberta, and they were all at various different strengths. I wasn't doing any equalization. I wasn't doing pretty much what you were supposed to be doing, but they were collecting honey though. As you can see, some of them were already onto their third box.
Yeah. What time of the year do you think you took this photograph? So for people who are listening to the podcast, what we're going to do for the next few minutes is describe a few photographs that Bidzina has brought in. And if you're on the vlog part, the video casting, if you're watching that, then you'll have an opportunity to actually see these images. But to begin with, what are we looking at? We have a picture of Bidzina.
Yes, and it's a beekeeping suit. This picture was taken in July of 2020. Might have been August, actually, but it was probably late July or either early August. And that's me in the front, and behind me there's, I think, 4 pallets, and each of them had... 6 pallets. Each of them had 4 beehives on them, and then we lost 3. We were down to 21 from 24 with it. But that's kind of the image. And then some of them have rocks on them, and we used rope because it got super windy. So, we were worried. So we put rocks, and then we tied ropes. But then eventually we started to use straps. But in the left corner, there's a metal lead. That was a lead weight.
A lead weight. Where did you get that?
I don't know. His grandpa had a bunch of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was super heavy. But that was because
heavy like lead, huh?
Yeah. We lost 3 beehives because of a windstorm, and that was the result. We decided to extra secure it.
So out of the 24, the 3 that you lost, you think was because of the wind?
Well, yeah, that's what the lids got blown off, and then we weren't there in time to check on them. And when we did check on them, there was no more bees. But does that make sense? Would they do that, or why would they leave if there's no lid? Wouldn't they just hang out there?
It depends on a lot of things. I would think that they would probably have stayed if they could have, built a nice cluster to, because bees will cluster out in the open, in a swarm and so on, and make comb and stay there. So that shouldn't be the only problem involved. But when bees leave a hive, we call that absconding. That's spelled absconding, absconding. So absconding is a technical term used by beekeepers to describe conditions where the colony is abandoned and all the bees disappear. That's a little different from colony collapse disorder, which can also result in absconding, but that's a whole different disorder, different problem.
Right.
So absconding often happens when conditions are really bad and the bees want to move on, which maybe is what they felt sitting out there in all that wind in the open prairie and the bright sunshine.
Yeah.
They might have just felt, okay, this just isn't working out for us. And they could have drifted. They could have drifted into neighboring hives.
Actually, maybe that's what could have happened.
And there's one more
and
possibility.
The queen just left behind.
Yeah, at least one more possibility that I can think of off the top of my head is that how long did you leave them? Like, do you remember? Was it a couple of weeks in between when it might?
It was like a week's time.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit over a week, and it was. It wasn't me that checked on them. It was my my other beekeeping.
Yeah, your partner, your beekeeping partner.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'm thinking that could have happened is that once the wind blew the hive open, and if it were midsummer and the main early flow had dried out, like the alfalfa and sweet clover, it doesn't last forever on the prairies. And sometimes the whole crop is done by the 1st of August in an area like Foremost, Alberta, where you were having those bees. Then maybe there was some robbing. And which means the bees could have been killed and fighting.
Oh, yeah, because they're just completely exposed, and there's 21 other beehives.
Yeah.
Right.
So that could have also happened. So it could be a combination. It's always hard. Sometimes people will say, like, I wonder what happened to this hive. And it could be your own hive. You're coming up there and, gee, what is this? What's going on here? And in my mind, sometimes that's as hard as coming upon a car wreck. And you're looking at the car in the ditch, and and somebody says, "Well, how did that happen? You tell me. How did that happen?"
Right.
You don't know if a tire blew out, if it was on a wet piece of icy.
Sun went in their eyes.
That's a good one. They were swerving to miss a deer. You don't know these things, and it's the same with the bees. It's so hard to come upon
There's a lot of
a bee wreck. And try to figure it out. Anyhow, it looks like a really tidy apiary. You've got the rocks on the lids to keep the wind from lifting the lids off too much.
And we made these very flimsy lids.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
that
doesn't matter too much.
Yeah,
what did you make them out of?
It was OSB board or.
Okay.
It's the stuff that when it gets exposed to water, it expands.
Right. So it's a particle board of some sort.
Yeah, and we that's where we messed up too. But we were going really cheap with it because because of COVID, we couldn't get our equipment in from China.
I remember. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the Chinese make some really good bee equipment, but you could always buy equipment close to home.
Yeah, but it was like triple the price.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's where they buy it from China and then sell it to us.
Do you think?
Well, not the woodware. The woodenware is all made here.
Yeah. Some of the plastic might come out of the Far East. I know I used to produce a lot of comb honey, like it was part of family business here in Alberta. And we would produce maybe 80,000 round sections in a year. And the cost, so I flew over to Vietnam.
80,000 combs of honey?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I went to Vietnam and
to the war?
Pardon?
I'm just joking.
No. That's a whole different story. We'll talk about that some other time. I missed the war by a few years. I was just a little too young. Okay. But anyhow, I enjoyed being in Vietnam. People were really, really gracious and very helpful and very good. And they built a mold for me to make the round sections and the round equipment, even the round frames. I came up with a special design that would replace, like in a deep hive, like you could make 8 combs on one frame, and it just all worked really nicely. Anyhow, to get to the point, it was much, much cheaper.
Yeah, like not to say like cheap sometimes doesn't necessarily mean like inferior quality.
That's right.
They have a lot larger population,
Yeah,
and there's bigger factories, and they make stuff at mass.
Yeah.
And when you do stuff at volume, it's just cheaper.
Right.
And yeah, so
Right.
we can benefit off that as well, but
Absolutely.
COVID kind of ruined it.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, we're back. But yeah, so this picture was...
Okay, we're looking at another picture now.
Yeah.
And this one is probably in the same location.
It's the same location.
So we're in foremost Alberta, open prairie. It looks like wheat fields in the distance.
And this was the following year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So a whole year has passed.
A whole year has passed, and now I'm planning. There's 11 dead out of the 21, and there's only 10 left.
Okay.
And I'm planning to move the 10 to BC.
Oh.
And yeah, and then if we go to the next picture here.
Okay. I may have these in a different order than what you're expecting, but this is.
But this is
next.
BC now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful place, huh? The
It was
mountain
beautiful.
behind you, yeah.
There was an organic farm. There was hazelnut trees. It was blueberries in the
nice.
area.
Yeah.
It was ideal.
Yeah.
But it was a 8-hour drive from Calgary where I lived.
Right. For 10 hives of bees.
It was 18 at the time.
Okay.
But eventually, 18. It was, but I took 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 10 I split into 18, and then I was working there at the time, so that's why I moved.
Oh,
them.
okay. Well, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So I was helping my brother. We were building a warehouse, and then once we finished building the warehouse, I decided to stay there with my truck. I had a camper. And then I just slept in the back.
Sure.
I had pull-out drawers that I made myself.
Most beekeepers start that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I was thinking I could do like guerrilla beekeeping, and then there was talks of fireweed honey.
Yeah.
And I would go exploring up in the hills, and I would find lots of pastoral field land where it's fireweed honey just growing everywhere. And I'm like, maybe I should put my bees here. Nobody will. But from the 8-hour drive, you have to drive like 40, 50 minutes into the mountains.
Yeah.
Like this, it's like a remote area. So I don't know. I brought them back to. So if we go to I don't know what the next.
Yeah,
picture
the
is.
next one might not be what you're expecting, but there is another.
Oh, okay. So this is. That was the area. So
this is in British Columbia now.
Yeah.
And we're looking at kind of a lot of brush around.
A lot of brush, and so the area, what it was the guy that was renting us equipment for the construction site. He was an older fella, and he was friends with my brother, and then I guess he wanted to help us out, so he allowed me to keep his bees on his property, and he had equipment, old stuff, people leaving stuff there it's storage land.
Okay.
And he let me stay there for free. And right there, it was a Volkswagen van. Only one of a kind. Or something like that, he was telling me. There's two of it, and the guy that owns it, he owns both.
Wow.
And I think the other one is in that shipping container beside it. But that one is it was more for spare parts, so they kept it outside.
Wow.
But, yeah, it was
a really neat, unusual place to be keeping these bees. The bees look like they were doing really well, what I can see. I don't know how much they've been smoked or how long they've been open, but they still have a lot of bees on the top bars. So they apparently were doing okay.
I was splitting them, and the advice that I was given is to separate all the bees into the bottom box. So I shook all because I couldn't find the queen. So I shook all the bees, and that was just a complete mess. It was this 18 beehives. Well, not 8, but 10 at the time, just shaking bees everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Okay.
But they were doing good. That was a good area. And then following year, out of the 18, 15 made it.
Okay.
The 15 I brought back to Strathmore. And this is the location. So
now we're looking at another photograph, and it's in Alberta.
now we're in Alberta, right? We're back 8 hours back in Alberta. So it's foremost 13-hour drive because and then there we're back to Strathmore. And this is Jesse and Alex.
Oh, okay.
And they are the sons of the owner of the land here. It's called Rocky Nar Guest Ranch. And they are a ranch that has cabins and tourist attractions.
Oh,
do you
nice.
know Eagle Lake?
Yeah, Eagle Lake is nice.
That's where they're right across it.
Okay.
They have the wheatland. They actually operate that area now, that campground.
Right.
Eagle Lake's campground.
Right. That'd be a nice place to stay if somebody's in the Calgary area. How long? Is it about half an hour from Calgary?
It's about from the southwest, from the center of Calgary, downtown. Yeah, it's about half an hour, 40 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. And they just moved into this property in 2021, and they listed their name on the Hosta Hive for.
Oh, and that's how you got a hold of them.
That's how I got a hold of them.
Yeah,
And they were just moved in. It was when I put the bees on the property, that was their first year on the property.
Oh, so they just moved there. The
They
bees just came
moved there.
in. Yes.
Yeah, and it was,
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. So then the 15 end up dying, and I don't know what the next picture here is, but.
Well, if you got
But this is actually us moving them. We decided to get a U-Haul trailer, and I moved. And I had that. My truck is full of equipment, because all this stuff, I'm carrying equipment with it to, if I ever need to expand or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so tell me a little bit about how you moved your hives then.
So so in the front there is bunch of bunch of empty boxes, empty frames.
Okay.
And then whatever space that was left in the back, we put the beehives. Now that I think of it, I should have put the beehives in the front because they're heavier.
Yeah, that would have held Did you have a ball joint on the on the trailer, like that hitch?
Yeah, the hitch.
So you want more weight on it.
That's right. I wouldn't want more weight on it, but it went pretty good. I know, and this was my first time ever driving this big trailer. It was it was a 12-footer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was 4-wheeler.
So the bees rode okay.
They rode okay, and I put them vertically, and they were fine. I didn't put them horizontally. So you want to put the frames vertically of the direction of the vehicle.
Right.
And that's how I did it.
Because you hit the brakes really hard.
Yeah.
You don't want all the bees to get squished in there.
No.
Yeah.
But then the 15 eventually went down to 12.
Okay.
And then the 12 I overwintered, and then the following, so that was 2022 fall, and then 2023 winter, I found 10 out of the 12 have died.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and I have 2 left, and at this point I'm about to give up.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
And
maybe that would have been the smartest thing for you to do.
Well, but this is where the bees dragged me back from the dead.
Yeah. Okay.
So that two that were left from the original stock, the 24, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to euthanize you guys. I'll still take care of you, but I'm not going to pay much attention. I let them produce honey. I went to Portugal. And then that same year that I was about to give up, my friend decides to join. He decides to become a beekeeper. He buys 3 beehives himself.
Okay.
So now I'm helping him keeping his bees, and I'm not even paying attention to the 2 that I have. But eventually, when I do come to them, they've produced a lot of honey. I harvested. I don't even treat them for varroa mite because I'm like, you guys are going to die like the rest of them. That's what I was thinking.
Good for you. Just let them die.
Well, at that point, I'm like, I was told that the queen has to be replaced. and around the third year, and I'm like, oh, that's what's going on. I wasn't replacing, like, my queens were getting old or whatever. That's what I was thinking. But that doesn't really make...
Maybe, but that.
So in my mind, I'm like, this is the end of the life cycle. I'm like, either I buy more and reuse the equipment, or there. But those two make it out of winter. 2024, I check on them. One of them is so strong, I split into pretty much 6, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. So so there's 8 in total now. 5 out of the 8 are on their third box. They're almost, and a bunch of them almost have their honey filled.
Wow.
And then the other 3 are straggling behind. I had to help them, equalization. But I think those 8 they're the strongest hives I've ever had.
Wow. Well, congratulations for that. Yeah. Is that getting us right up to date? Like
that
now?
is right up to date. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that is amazing, fantastic.
I don't know, is there...
I only have one more photo here. This is the last one.
This was the last season of the 12 beehives I harvested honey.
Yes.
And those were the honey supers.
Yeah.
I put them overnight like that.
Okay.
And then the next morning I showed up and the bees were all they were down.
They were gone.
Yeah.
Yep. So
still a lot of bees.
So for people listening, what we're talking about is harvesting honey by removing the boxes of honey and just letting them set in the apiary overnight. And then the bees will drift out, or in the next morning they'll fly out. Now, we can do that during about 1 or 2 months of the year here in Alberta, but it's not something you would do in the spring or fall because of robbing.
That's true, and also you wouldn't do this anywhere where there's dense. If you're living in the city or even an acreage, there's no one around me. Like I'm like
okay,
yeah. So that's the only time you would do something like this.
So you're thinking because of bothering people with the bees?
Well, because the robbing, right? If a robbing situation does start to happen, you don't want it to be in a neighborhood.
No, you want to. If anybody wants to try this system, it does work. I've seen it. I've actually had to do it a couple of times. My own operation, and you can take the boxes off. Now another trick, as long as there's a honey flow going on, you can remove the boxes and you can actually walk to the edge of the apiary and set the boxes kind of upright so that the sunlight gets into and the bees see the sun, and then they leave the honey. And when they leave the honey, they'll fly back to their original hive.
So you take the honey supers away from the hive, not like placed on top.
Don't leave them on the hive. I didn't.
Right, that makes sense. Okay.
If swarming did get started, then they would be attacking your bees and not just the honey that's setting off to the side.
Right.
But it's not recommended procedure. I don't even know if it's legal in Alberta to do that. I did do it in the past, so maybe when I leave the studio, I'm going to be arrested for that misdeed. But it does work as long as you can take a comb of honey, a comb of a frame out of your brood nest, and give it a little bit of a shake on its side, and you have nectar dripping out. That tells you that there's a good nectar flow going on. If nothing falls out, then they're not making very much honey. Right. And you would not want to do this. Then what you need to do is use any of the other systems, like a bee brush or a blower or chemicals to chase the bees down.
I did additionally use a blower on top of this to get the little stragglers.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I don't have there's a video of it. But,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
But yeah, I think the Bee Escape is probably the best.
Yeah, I do use the Bee Escape these days. That's the
but
way
it takes long though. You have to plan it, and it's all about planning and beekeeping.
Yeah, everything is about planning.
But this one, like, I had to get them. I had to harvest, and I was short on time, and and I'm like, I'm not dealing with these bees because the first couple of years, man, there were so many bees.
Yeah.
In the honey extraction.
Right.
Yeah.
So you wanted to make sure that you weren't going to be bothering people with having bees flying around.
Because I was going to be, they have a kitchen on the property that I was harvesting the honey.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and they have weddings.
Okay.
They held, like, the next day they were going to have a wedding. And they actually did have a wedding the next day, and there was bees there. And they were like, what do we do? And I'm like, just leave them alone.
Okay.
They're just, they were making that little cluster of bees that they do when.
Yeah. So many things to think about.
Yeah.
So many weird things going on. So that gives us a nice overview, right up to date with your 8 hives of bees.
8 hives, and my friend also has 8. His 3, we split into 8. There a couple of them are doing good, but the other ones are kind of straggling behind.
Right. There are always going to be a few like that.
Yeah.
Will the ones that are straggling, are they going to be able to fill up for winter? Do you think you'll be able to
see, the issue that I'm dealing with right now is I have a bunch of drawn comb, and but we don't want to start mixing matching with our equipment, and we're running out of drawn comb for his. We don't have any like, I don't know if all the hives will get enough drawn comb.
Yeah, it's but
and we're kind of like, we don't have any like right now.
You want to get some foundation and put them on the
like there's empty frames. We have empty frames, but we're thinking that we won't have enough of drawn comb to get any honey or them to build up.
Oh, I see. This is for those 3.
The ones that aren't doing so good. Yeah. But they're.
Well, here in Alberta, Canada, which is just north of Montana, just outside of Calgary, the weather has been fantastic for bees this spring.
Yeah, you're right.
Lots of rain. Lots and lots of rain.
That's good.
It's a delayed season, which often is better for beekeepers. So
because it goes into the September longer, the warmer September.
Well, not just that, but we don't have a dearth. We don't have a slow period in between. Things will kind of come along, and from the time that the dandelions are done, then almost immediately, because dandelion flow is a little late this year. Yeah. And not as intense as some years, but that was because we were having cool, rainy weather.
Right.
And the bees continued to develop on the dandelion that was available, the pollen and nectar from dandelions here in Alberta. And then sometimes we have as much as a 3-week period with almost nothing coming in, and then the sweet clover and alfalfa start to bloom. Right. This year, there wasn't much of a gap. The bees just kind of went right from dandelion and a few odd flowers in the spring right on into the first sweet clover. Now the sweet clover flow is intense. And alfalfa has started to come out, and probably maybe next week a lot of local farmers will be cutting their alfalfa. And once they cut it, there's still lots of sweet clover around and lots of canola in the area.
Right. So once the nectar flow begins, it kind of doesn't stop until the hot weather stops, right?
Exactly. Unless we have a really bad drought, and it doesn't look like
it gets too hot.
Right, too hot and dry.
Yeah.
We can get some incredibly
the nectar
warm.
just dries up.
Right.
Is that what happens, or
the nectar dries out, the plants start to suffer, and you get really hot, windy weather, and everything dries out. That's rare. It does happen probably 1 year in 20 that we just have a really poor crop because of the heat and drought. But this year doesn't look like it'll be one of those. So good.
Okay.
Good. I think you're, for better or worse, it looks like you're in the bee business.
I think I would. I was thinking just yesterday, actually, I was driving back from the Beehive. I checked on them, and I'm like, I want to continue this. Yes. I won't stop until I die.
Okay.
Or whatever. That's
a plan.
Yeah, that's the only thing that could really stop me at this point.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Knock on wood.
You're committed. You're committed to this deal. That's great. That's really great. So I have 2 pictures of my own bees from this year that I thought I would share. And one of them, a local reporter came by because we were talking about the season, the bees, and so on, and I wanted to kind of show what a good normal honeybee colony should be looking like at this time of the year, and so we're looking at a photograph here of me next to a couple of colonies of bees and a reporter with a huge camera, and the reporter has his veil on, my veil on his head.
You didn't wear a veil, huh?
I don't wear a veil.
Okay.
No. I haven't worn a veil probably in 8 or 10 years, I would guess. Nor do I put on gloves and I wear my moccasins barefooted. That's just kind of my thing. That's for the last 4 or 5 years, I haven't worn socks at all. So that's how I go out to the bees. And a lot of times I don't use a smoker. And, when you only have 2 colonies, and if you know what you've been doing for the last 50 years working with bees, then you kind of understand what's going to happen next among the bees.
Right.
You know how to move. You know what to expect and what to do. And I find that I rarely get stung, and if I do get stung, I don't mind it at all. Right. So we were digging into a colony of bees. It was in two boxes. This year, I lost both my hives over winter last year. So, even keeping bees for years and years, you can still end up losing colonies.
So this is a new colony you got here?
Yes. So this was a new colony around the 1st of June or so. And just to show you how they develop now. So what we're looking at is 2-story colony overflowing with bees, me holding a frame of brood and chatting up about the quality of the hive. And then just a very short time later, like a month later, I've got 3 honey boxes on each of those 2 new colonies. So both colonies were new. One was a nuke and the other one was a package. And I kind of wanted to do both because I teach a lot of beekeeping courses. And I want to be able to relate to the people who are buying packages or who are buying nukes. And obviously I take a few photographs, show what I do, do this and then do that, and what they should look like. But both of them came along to be almost equal in strength, and both of them required enough room to be able to hold about 100 to 120 pounds of honey.
And you got them same time?
No, the package came in. But I think the package arrived on April 24, and the nuke did not arrive until about May 10 or 12. So, or maybe more like May 15th. There was a good 3 weeks in between the 2. So they did equalize, which is typical. Even a package will often do just as well as an overwintered colony. And some advantages in using a package instead of an overwintered colony is it will not swarm. Like it's almost impossible to get a package to swarm. It has a new queen, it's building up, and when it peaks in population, the swarming fever period is pretty much over.
Okay.
So that it won't swarm.
A package?
Yeah, package.
Okay.
And it will produce an awful lot of honey if you're in a good area and take care of the bees as well as you can. So anyhow, 2 backyard hives is the extent of my beekeeping now. I'm not very mobile, so I use a wheelchair to get out to the hives, but I still enjoy working with them, talking to them, sitting by them, listening to them. It's been good. It's been really good. So that kind of catches both of us up with how beekeeping is going right now.
Yeah, no, it's going. I have a new location.
Okay.
I call it new location unlocked because I kind of look at beekeeping like a game. Actually, that's what I have on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Trailblazing beekeeper on a quest to house 1,000 beehives in Alberta by 2030. So I'm giving myself.
That's enough time.
That's enough time,
You'll
and it's
learn a
very
lot.
specific and. It's doable.
Yes,
it's
it is.
nothing that it's out of the order, out of the imagination. But if it can be done, it'll be really cool.
Yes.
So I look at it like a video game, and a new area just got unlocked in Inglewood. I'm just behind the Calgary Zoo, one of my beehives.
Okay, now Inglewood is a community that's right downtown in the oldest part of Calgary.
Right. It was one of the first ever neighborhoods in Calgary. It was a historic neighborhood. Actually, after putting my beehives there, I watched a documentary about the history of Calgary. It's very interesting.
What'd you learn?
So pretty much they got very lucky that the Canadian Pacific Railway decided to build their to have the train run through it.
Right.
And
right.
that's pretty much what spurred the growth.
Yeah.
Because once they have a train line through the Calgary, then buildings, there was a construction boom, which we always have in Calgary. There's always other than oil, construction is the biggest industry. And that's what it was a construction boom because of the railway. And then all these construction workers now needed homes. They have families. And they needed, their services that develop, and now there's banks, there all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just
because of the railroad.
Well, they got lucky, right? It could have been Lethbridge. They all now have one, but at that time, it could have been any one of those. Mm-hmm. And then there was also a train that went up to Edmonton, right? That they got rid of. Wasn't there a line that went up
between
there?
Calgary and Edmonton?
A passenger line?
No, that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know my history nearly as well as I should.
We need to have more trains in Canada.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but they need to be a really different kind of train than what we've been using. I mean, I hear
high-speed rail, right?
Yeah, high-speed railroad is and whoa, across the prairies. You know?
My God, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's not like why would they're like, oh, there's no economic benefits. What are you talking about? Oh, you don't have the money for it. What are you talking? All you guys have is money. All Canada has is resources, is money.
Yeah, we are well off. But to put the size of Calgary into some context for people who don't really know Canada very well, Canada goes from, we like to say, ocean to ocean to ocean. So we have 3 oceans that border on Canada. That's the Pacific, the Atlantic, and then to the north, the Arctic Ocean.
Right.
So we're surrounded by those 3 oceans. And to the south, we are up against the United States. Yeah. So if you drove in a car from Victoria, which is the capital of British Columbia and is on an island off the coast sitting in the Pacific Ocean, that's in the west, that's the west coast, get in your car, take a ferry boat, which lasts for about 2 hours. By the time you get loaded and get off again, you'll be in Vancouver, and then you bypass Vancouver and you drive on what's called the Trans-Canada Highway. And that road is the longest road in the world.
Okay.
It is. So I don't remember if it's 8,000 kilometers in length, which would be about 5,000 miles of driving. So if you drove from San Francisco to New York, you would drive about 3,000 miles. And if you drove from Vancouver Island to Newfoundland on the other coast, then that is a distance of about 5,000 miles.
Wow.
So it is a long, long way across our country. And you will spend, what would you spend? Probably 10 days of hard driving. Yeah. But you would stop every night and get a proper hotel and a sleep. And,
right.
But you would take 10 days to drive across the country.
Yeah.
You could do it in 4, 5, if you have a couple of people driving and you take turns, you sleep in the vehicle. But let's, be sensible and you want to see the country. But that's a long, long time.
Yeah.
Even a flight from Victoria to Newfoundland, which I don't think there are any direct flights. You would have to do a hub in maybe Montreal or Toronto. And altogether, your flight time is probably going to be about 6 hours.
Yeah, there's something like that. Yeah, Toronto to Calgary is like 3.
That's right.
So
that's right. Yeah, and it would be easily another 3 to get from Toronto to say St. John's, Newfoundland.
And
so trains.
Yeah, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And you know what's actually a crazy thing? Calgary, the C train, the Calgary Transit, receives, I want to say it's like top 3 in the amount of ridership it receives in North America.
Wow.
And of all the transit systems in North America, the C train receives, it's like in the top 10 with the amount of ridership. Yeah. And that is because they just have only it's the amount of trains that they have.
Yes.
They don't have enough. They only have that. The other jurisdictions have way more trains and different kind of
so you're talking about like passenger miles kind of thing. So the number of miles of train and the number of passengers. Well, the city is I'm just going to try to remember.
It is spread.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well,
spread,
not miles, but also the amount of riderships it gets. Like people using it. Like
total number of folks that sit on a train.
Yes, it's one of the highest in North America.
Well, that's good. That's actually really good because it keeps the congestion down in the downtown core.
It is, but there's kind of like a hidden meaning behind it because it just means that we need more trains.
Yeah.
Like there's people using it.
Right.
And
so
the system's being overstrained.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
Well, they've been debating for about 40 years to put a new line going from downtown to another part of the city that isn't served by rail at this point. And it becomes a politically contentious issue from time to time because should we spend our money?
Yeah, exactly.
My own personal point of view, and it's only mine, is that yes, go ahead. One of the things you can do for people in any city in the world to make their lives better is to have more affordable and more convenient transportation, so that the poorest people have a chance to get to work or get to school, and that's something we could do.
In Switzerland, their train systems are so good that they even have their business professionals use them, because instead of wasting time commuting in your car, you could spend it in the train to do some work.
Hey, that happens here. It does, here.
But it's not.
No, I used to work for one of the biggest. Well,
can't do work anymore. Have you been on the CC train recently?
Well, I know it needs cleaned up, but that happens.
Yeah, they're not cleaning anymore either.
Yeah,
it's wild. It's like the buses are not being cleaned yet.
No, you've got a point. A point. But I worked for the biggest company in the world for about 5 or 6 years.
And you would work on the C train?
I would travel on the C train, and I would often run into managers and other folks.
Right.
I was a scientist working in exploration and seismic work kind of stuff. But I would see people on there, and it was just so convenient because you could drive to a free parking station for 5-minute drive, or catch a bus. I often even did that. Catch a bus to the train station downtown, and the whole time I'm I wrote my my book, the Bad Beekeeping book. I literally wrote it on the C train in Calgary. So every day I'd go into work and I would cover maybe 1 or 2 more pages of that book. I would have it written out. And then I would edit it, type it up, and put it into the book. But it's convenient because you can find a comfortable spot to sit.
There's a certain flow that happens when you're on the train.
Yeah.
And then
No, I know they can be dangerous, especially at night or mid-afternoon when the business people aren't on the train. But riding in the morning and then the around dinner time, it was full of people who were heading to work or coming home from work.
Yeah.
And I never saw any situation that made me feel uncomfortable or where I felt like I needed to step in and help somebody. It was just things worked. Yeah. So
as you talk, I'm just going to check my camera.
Yeah, go ahead. So we're talking about Calgary and trains and Canada, but
we got to get back.
But we probably should circle back to a little bit on bees again. And Bidzina, you did come up with a few stories that you're going to tell us that were found in the newspapers and so on. But before you do that, I'd kind of like to chat just a little bit about a paper that was published very recently, and we'll put links out for people so that they can get a hold of the article. But this article was published in Environmental Research Letters, and it's land use changes associated with declining honeybee health across temperate North America. So temperate North America would be everything from, say, north of Florida and north of Arizona, up to a little bit further into sort of like the end of the agriculture in Canada. So it's a huge area that they studied. And this study was an amazing job. It took a couple of years and several years of analyzing the data, but it basically focuses on I think it was 638 colonies of bees in 46 locations scattered across Canada. And what they did is they wanted to determine how influential the landscape is for the success of honeybee colonies. And probably this could be extrapolated to all the other types of bee species that we have too. And what they found was that the changing land use in North America has had a rather detrimental effect on the success of colonies of bees. And the article itself talks a little bit about how rigorously they conducted their experiments, and what they did is just astounding. I mean, I'm amazed with the kind of thought and work and preparation that went into this particular study. But what they had were locations with honeybees in Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, I think Ontario and Quebec, and I'm not sure if there was somebody in Atlantic provinces in the far eastern part of Canada. But what they did is in each of those cases, they wanted to have the colonies totally uniform. So they started the bees with the same type of queen, same age, same type of bee equipment. The bees were started identically, and even down to the point of knowing that all the colonies are eventually going to get mites, and that mites could be influencing how well the colonies did.
Right.
So what they did is they made sure that all the bees, all of these experimental colonies, had varroa mite. And they counted, and if it didn't have enough mites, they put them in. So they wanted
control the mite.
They wanted to control everything they could possibly control, so that the only real variables that were relatively unknown were what's the difference in the type of land surrounding the beehives, and how does that influence how well the colonies do?
That's the only difference.
That was what they attempted to do, and I think they were pretty close to finding that out. And apparently there were about 70 different kinds of land forms that we could take into account across Canada.
Right.
And those would be like different types of crops, grassland, different kinds of forests, and marshy areas, and so on and so on. And they were able to reduce it to 4 principal types of areas. And those 4 principal types were urban land covers, so this would be inside of cities, and forested land cover, and then agricultural land, so this could be anything from wheat farming to alfalfa fields to corn and soybean fields in Canada.
Right.
And then finally, what they called herbaceous, just general types of wild flowers. And the results were really convincing that bees in Canada don't do anywhere near as well in an urban environment. And there could be so many reasons for that I don't remember if the article went into depth to try to discuss or determine why. They were more interested in determining, is there a difference? So they actually were trying to see, can we quantify how well bees do in different kinds of land cover environments? But what would you think? Like an urban area, the evidence from this very intensive, very well-conducted experimental work tells us that urban areas are not the best for honeybees.
It would make sense just due to the so much variables going on. Everyone's using different chemicals for their yard. But I think if you're in a safe neighborhood, it can be good for the bees if there's enough resources and there's no other bees in the area. But it all comes down to what the neighbors are using on their yard.
I think that's a big part of it. There is a little bit more in my mind that has to be appreciated, and that's what we call fragmentation of the landscape. So, we don't have extensive fields of the same sort of thing blooming in an urban setting. Yeah. So that works particularly against social insects that need to have, kind of homogeneous types of fields flowers, even wildflowers. If there are a lot of the same kind, then that helps. But in an urban setting, we don't have that.
So that kind of makes sense because where I'm located in the city, I had bees in my backyard just for about a month and a half, and they went from 2 boxes of brood to pretty much filling up 3 boxes of honey.
Okay.
And I'm right across from a highway.
Yeah.
And between the highway and us is like this huge field that never gets touched. People don't walk on it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's perfect area for canola. Well, it used to be farmland, actually. There used to be pasture, but then they built a highway there. But
all right.
yeah, so it used to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was actually a beekeeper in my area that had 50 beehives in his backyard. You know about that guy?
I do know about that guy.
Yeah.
Let's just say that thanks to people who put too many hives in their backyard, Calgary now controls the number of colonies of bees we're allowed to have in a backyard. Because
I don't know why you would have 50 beehives.
Yeah, well, we're not going to discuss that because
there's a news article
that was,
if anybody ever wants.
Yeah, there are news
do a little
articles,
research.
but it's pretty sad that
it was after that when it kind of that makes sense.
Directly because of it.
Yeah, that makes total. He bought a lot of bees from me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't really fulfill the order, but
yeah,
he just the next following so he just gave me a check. He's like, yeah, I'll buy it. I'm like, what the hell are you doing with these bees?
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, unfortunately,
70s, anyways, I don't need to go into
yeah, he was right in a community with houses all around him, and it was pretty awkward for the neighbors who.
I mean, 50 beehives.
Yeah.
Like I don't even where I am located.
Right.
I'll put a max of 24. That's the normal, like 24 to a yard.
Yeah, and this was behind his house in a city lot with neighbors right across the fence. So those neighbors had to complain that kids were getting bothered by the bees when they went out to play. Laundry.
It looked like very eyesore. Very big
eyesore. Oh, yeah. So anyhow, urban areas won't do as well for a number of reasons. But if anyone is actually looking at the at our presentation here, our discussion today, they will see that the researchers put together 4 different graphs, one for each of those types of land, one for urban, one for forest, one for agriculture, and one for just general weedy, herbaceous land cover. Okay, so in the case of urban, if we look at the success of the colonies of bees, and as I say, there were 600 and some colonies involved in these experiments, then we find that the more dense the urban coverage is, like up to say 60% urbanized, then the bees certainly do the poorest. And it's statistically, the p-value is much less than 0.05. So statistically, definitely there's a link there. But as far as keeping honeybees in and around either forested areas or next to agricultural landscapes, then there is less effect on how well the bees do. And the metrics they used to determine how well bees are doing basically were how heavy was the colony in the fall, and how big was the cluster size in the fall. And those were really good proxies for knowing how well the colony is going to do the next year as well. So they made that a standard to something you could weigh, you could measure, and you can compare between colonies. And when you do enough, in their case over 600 colonies of bees, they were able to find out that statistically, there was very, very, very strong evidence that the best place to keep honeybees in temperate North America are areas that are basically wildflower, herbaceous cover. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, places that are remote. That, what I'm thinking about here is, say, the edge of mountains in Alberta, or in the Precambrian shield, where there are other problems like cooler weather and so on.
Yeah.
But in general, if you were finding a place for bees, you would probably want it to be a place that has a little less agriculture, although agriculture isn't a showstopper.
Yeah.
But a lot of wildflowers, like we're thinking spring buildup, willows, dandelions, fall.
Not too many foot traffic.
Not too much foot traffic, not too many people being bothered there in those locations. And in that case, there was a really strong correlation in how well the bees did. And what that led the researchers to ask out loud is the obvious question is, as urbanization continues in temperate North America with more and more bigger and bigger cities, then are we going to be facing more and more difficult times for the beekeepers and even for the wild native bees? And I think their conclusion is yes, like this is a sign.
Yeah, kind of building off on that, actually, before we dive into the other article I have, actually, they did. So article outside of science.org, Science Advances, they found that, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong article. Sorry, ScienceDirect.com.
Oh, yeah.
So worldwide occurrence records suggest a global decline in bee species richness.
Right.
So they've pretty much highlights is the number of bee species found each year in GBIF data has declined since 1990s. Approximately 25% fewer species of bees were found between 2006 and 2015 than before 1990. As a records increase as a result of enhanced data mobilization, analysis, uncertainty decreases. Both obstacles to data mobility and drivers of actual bee decline need addressing. So honeybees are doing good, but yeah, like as you mentioned, native bee, like other species of bees, they're not even native bees. These are just species of bees. We have 20,000 of them.
Right.
These
around
bees
the
are
world.
Dying.
Yeah, they are. And let me try to
25% of them.
25%. I was just wanting to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
That is a huge number in
That
35 years.
Yes.
So from 1990 or so until roughly now, that's 35 years.
Yeah.
And a quarter less of all the species.
That's what they've when they did their field. That's what they've. Maybe they're out there somewhere.
Right.
They're finding 25% of the less time.
Wow.
In areas when they do their study.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In any area, worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that is probably, I think it has to be got to do with the pesticides, and herbicides using, because I wanted, that's the next article that I wanted to kind of get into. So, there was an emergency ban. This article recently posted by ragus.co.uk. It's a UK website. It's Sugar Talk. I think it's a sugar company. They make sugar since 1928. They've been making sugar. This website.
All right.
And they've. So I don't know how to say this word. Sorry.
Let's see if I can see it. Neonicotinoid.
Neonicotinoids. Yes. So
perfect.
Yeah, neonicotinoids pesticide ban has been lifted for UK farmers. This is an emergency ban that was lifted this year for sugar beets, and the EU the EU court was contemplating doing the same thing, but they've actually passed a law that you cannot allow anything during an emergency.
Okay, this let me try to paraphrase that so I know what you're saying, because I kind of drift off from time to time.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's an age thing. Yeah. Anyhow, what you're saying is that neonicotinoids were banned in
Yes.
the past.
Yes.
But they did an emergency repeal or lifting of the ban so
yes.
that sugar companies can go out and spray
Their sugar beets.
sugar beets.
Which I think honeybees do pollinate,
Mm,
or they get near it, or
I'm not sure that
I
they
don't know.
do. I don't think so, but just having it in the air and having
Right.
it in the ground, and then the next year they plant something else in that
That's right.
spot, a crop rotation or whatever they do there.
Yeah.
So
And then the EU court states that the EU Court of Justice ruled that EU member states could no longer grant emergency authorization for the use of neonicotinoid treated seeds. And so the reason why this ban was lifted, so the UK government has given emergency authorization for farmers to use previously banned pesticides that protects against yellow virus on sugar beet crops, following an application from the National Farmers Union, NFU. In recognizing the potential danger posed by yellow virus on sugar beet crops, the government has authorized the limited and controlled use of seed treatment Cruiser SB for the 2024 growing season. Cruiser SB contains thiothexosam, one of the three neonicotinoids, along with clothinate and imidacloprid. I don't know. To be banned, they were banned in 2018. Though neonicotinoid seed treatments are harmful to wildlife and the environment, they protect sugar beet crops. And then it goes in on the honeybees. So neonicotinoids have been linked to the decline of bees and pollinators, given that approximately 75% of food crops require pollination. In the UK, where a third of the food crops are pollinator activity is estimated to contribute to hundreds of millions of pounds per year to the country's economy. So they're in the area. And then neonicotinoids are not just harmful to the pollinators. These chemicals, substances can remain active in the soil for a long time, running into and pollinating streams, rivers, and recent research has found that more than 10% of rivers in England contain neonicotinoids. England's rivers are diverse ecosystem that contains 3,800. Okay, anyways.
Yeah. So the neonics are escaping from the
Yes.
farmland. I don't understand why they are advocating the use of any sort of neonicotinoids when the culprit is a virus.
I don't know. This is what the National Farmers Union has recommended.
So we don't know enough about this except to say that England is or the United Kingdom is no longer part of the EU.
That's right.
So they're free. To
do
reverse
whatever they like.
the ban and start using neonicotinoids to kill virus. Well, maybe there's a bug that carries the virus. I don't know because I don't know that much about this topic.
But kind of the big issue here too is the loss of we've been losing soil, ground soil.
Yes.
And
right.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's how it's carried into the water. That's
right.
That's a really good point. That's one that we often overlook, is the fact that the erosion, the loss of the soil, and as the soil moves out of the fields, it carries along whatever chemicals have been used over the last 20 years or longer in the fields, and that can include neonicotinoids.
Yeah, so I personally think that the bees are dying, like species of bees have declined because of this use of harmful chemicals.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that's at least part of the factor that's there. Yeah.
Because recently, countries that have been becoming more industrial.
Yes.
India, China. Well, not recently. They've been doing it for a while now. But even in Africa, all these new industrial farms, they're just jumping on the bandwagon on using the harmfulest chemicals they can because there's no regulation in those countries yet.
Right. Well, there must be an economic advantage. I mean, that's the problem there.
Yes.
Is that we don't value food that is it has limited use of industrial chemicals. We don't value them enough. So, as long as we want cheap bananas or cheap coffee, then they're going to try to do it, raise it the most economically as they can. And so ultimately we are the ones responsible for that just by our decisions in shopping.
Yes, that's true. I think there needs to be more transparent labeling.
Yes.
There should be some sort of law passed where there can't be fine prints in things. If you have some sort of fine print or a contract that has, like, there should be a law passed where you can't exceed a certain amount of characters for certain things. Like for ingredients, like they have to be for the lay person, for the average person, they should be able to pick this thing up, look at all the ingredients very visibly, know where it comes from. Is it Canadian? Where is it? Like, is it American? Is it from Europe? Is it from Asia? Where is it from? And then everything just displayed at the front instead of their marketing ploy.
Right.
Whatever they're just trying to market.
Yeah. Well,
that should be on the back or something. You should reverse it.
Yeah. You have a really good point. I think maybe for people to be able to pick up on things more readily.
Yeah, that's right.
They maybe simplify it to the point where you don't list all those chemicals. You just have like a skull and crossbones on the front of the can of tomato sauce.
I mean, at a certain point, we gotta really.
That was kind of a joke, but.
But come on, like some of these chemicals, I look at the ingredients in some things, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I can't. Like, why does this need to be in here?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well,
so this like small little bag of things.
It's there for
preservatives whatever.
Any number of reasons you could imagine, but it always results in some sort of a bottom line,
right.
Unless the government steps in and puts guidelines and says, nope, can't use red dye number 3 because we know it gives cancer. Yeah. And the companies push back and they say, but it makes it bright and colorful and red, just like the people want to buy it. And the government has to put a law in, and then it becomes a level playing field. It's draconian, it's government, it's interference, but if all the companies have to follow the same laws, then it evens that playing field where the ones who would normally try to be honest and good aren't being penalized by the ones who are cutting corners. There's so there is a place.
Share.
Yeah, there is a place, but barring government suggestions or regulations, then the average company is going to try to do things as economically as they possibly can. So somewhere in the back room, somebody's figured out, well, if we use neonicotinoids, it'll knock this out. And if we don't use it, we're going to have 20% smaller crop. So, it costs $1,000 an acre for the chemicals, but we're losing $3,000 an acre without the chemicals. Yeah. So we're going to go with chemicals.
It's always about the money, right? The monetary value, and we never look at anything beyond that.
I know. It kind of has to be for companies,
right?
Like that's the way it works. But that's why having some government regulations that are applied equally to all the companies, and then the consumer ultimately is going to pay more because
Yeah, that's right. It always backfires.
But that's no, it's not really backfiring. I mean, that's okay. What it means is you're paying more because your food is healthier and you're going to have another 2 or 3 years of life, maybe good, healthy, strong life ahead of you because you were willing to support, chemical bans and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't know, but that's kind of was. Going back to kind of the original. The myth of when we were talking about are honeybees dying. So honeybees are not dying, but bees are dying.
Yes.
Other species of bees are dying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And what you found
I think it's,
there,
I don't know. I think it's that. It's the chemicals. But
yeah. Yep. So then, do we care?
Well, we have to care.
Why? If 25% of all the bugs, bees, have died off,
That's still 15,000 left.
See, we still have a whole bunch to go yet.
That's right.
Maybe in another 30 years we can get that down to half. Some of them sting.
That's
so
right.
Maybe it's
But it's foreshadowing to what's coming. And at that rate, it's very unsustainable.
You're absolutely right. It's unsustainable, but I think what I'm looking for here are some reasons why biodiversity is important. And I think one of the biggest things about biodiversity is we don't know what we're losing.
Right.
And when
we've never experienced it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And when an acre of Amazon rainforest is burned to the ground, and there might have been one species, maybe not of a bee, but even a bee that produces something chemical in its body, or that gathers something that could be a cure for a disease that affects people or affects other creatures, other animals. There is a link to biodiversity and a stable, healthy environment for everybody.
Yeah.
So when we lose a quarter of the bees and maybe another quarter in another 30 years, we could be inflicting a lot of damage that we don't even know. We don't even understand how this one is related to that thing.
It's like that star system. You know, when you it's like there's weights. There's like one going down here and one going out there, but it's perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
And as soon as you take one off, it goes all over the place. You can take the middle one off. It'll go all over the place. But you put it back and.
What a great way to look at it. Yeah.
I think because it's going to affect everything, right? It'll affect the animals, and then they will get extinction of animals, and then we don't have prey to eat. We don't eat bees, but our prey does eat bees, or
eats the flowers that the bees would have pollinated.
Right. Some sort of that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of species of bees, even in Alberta, where we are, that that have a few flowers that depend on them. And if those bees disappeared, those flowers would disappear.
Right.
And we don't know what might be eating those particular flowers in the wildlife and how we just don't know enough about the structure, the interconnections. What we do probably know is at least we should know, is that it is interconnected. And I love the way you described. You take one marble out of the balanced circle, like the galaxy's spinning around or something.
That's
take one of the stars out, and the whole thing could just start rattling and shaking.
And you're like,
what
the heck? How is keeping everything in balance?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, but we can kind of ease out of the serious talk a little bit, go into the pop culture if you like.
Oh yeah. I want to. You mentioned Beyoncé.
I did mention Beyoncé. Yes. Mm-hmm. So Beyoncé has recently had a world tour. This is from the University of Nevada, and Beyoncé's Renaissance World Tour. That's what it was called.
Okay.
She called it the Renaissance, And so the article starts in Las Vegas, thousands of bees gathered at the Hive for one reason, their queen bee. And it's spelled B-E-Y, Beyoncé.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know this either. So I think that's the extent of the bee talk.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're done talking about bees, but maybe we're not done talking about Beyoncé.
You're right. And then so she announced her first tour in 7 years, performed her 7th studio album. The moment of those giant screens spelled out her name, you could sense the crowd's anticipation. And
they were buzzing.
They were buzzing. You can sense this. They messed up. Mm-hmm. You could sense the crowd's buzz. Growing in excitement.
They didn't use the word buzz in the article.
They didn't use the word buzz.
See, they missed a perfect chance to be corny and funny and do a dad joke all at the same time.
for the Renaissance through the simultaneously cheer. So this was a quote. Las Vegas, I love. Oh, this is Beyonce. Las Vegas, I love you, were Beyonce's last words.
Ever?
Right before. You're right. I shouldn't have ended it that way. Were Beyonce's last words right before emerging in front of eager eyes on the big stage, and then so there was something. Let me.
Well, we're talking about her being a queen bee, right?
Right. Let me go back to that part.
So as a queen bee, she's going to live 5 times longer. No, more than that. Maybe 20 times longer than the average worker, and Beyonce's going to be busy laying eggs every day.
She is, and then, but oh my God, where the hell did I lose this? Okay, so the Beehive, that's what they're called, her fan base.
Oh, I didn't know that.
BEY Hive.
Okay.
And
that's a real thing. That's not just this article, but it's
no.
That's
what they call she calls. The Taylor Swift has the Swifties. Yeah. So hers are she's the bee, queen bee, and those are her bees.
Okay.
And so Beyonce's fan base have been long known as the Beehive, a term references to the collective nature and the fierce loyalty of a bee colony. Swarm intelligence. So bees are known for their swarm intelligence, a form of collective decision-making where a group as a whole acts as a unified entity. The Beehive, B-E-Y Hive, often exhibits similar behavior, organizing fan projects.
Behavior, is that also B-E-Y?
No.
No, okay.
Organizing fan projects, promoting Beyonce's work, and fiercely defending her from criticism.
Oh, good for them.
That's right.
They're her supporters.
And then the Sibyl, the meaning in the bees in the Renaissance, because it was called the Renaissance Tour.
Yes.
So the album title is called itself is the Renaissance, and some are interpreting this as a nod to the industrious and productivity of bees,
of course,
who are constantly working to build and maintain their hive.
Mm-hmm.
And then costumes and visuals. Beyonce has incorporated bee-inspired elements into her tour costumes and visuals, including outfits with honeycomb patterns and imagery of bees swarming. And then song lyrics. Some of the songs on the album, like Alien, Superstar, and Cozy, contain references to bees and their behavior, further solidifying the connection.
Wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I've always kind of liked her. When I watch her dance and sing and the energy and I didn't really care too much for her country release, because I'm old school country. I got to hear, I got to hear Johnny Cash's gravelly voice. That's a Chris Christopherson, something like that. But Beyonce coming into it, why not? People should do whatever they feel like they want to do for music style.
Yeah.
And doesn't this also reflect a little bit? I was just thinking while you were talking. It reflects a little bit back to that first article you read about if we lost Taylor Swift or never existed or Beyonce, there's a hole there. And we don't really notice that it's missing, just as we wouldn't really notice that some of the species of bees, wild bees in the world are missing. You don't notice that at first, but it all contributes to a better balanced ecosystem, including musical ecosystems.
Now, so we can actually do a whole episode about this, but there's actually a historical significance to bees and music. So from rock carvings to rock music. So the prevalence of bees in art throughout human history. So they've been, there's an article by, and like I said, we could do a whole episode about this, but it's by the RMIT University, so university in Australia. So from rock carvings to rock music, the prevalence of bees in art throughout human history. In a new multidisciplinary international research has found that the appreciation of bees have been recognized throughout history and cultures, represented in diverse art forms, from ancient carvings and historic cave art to big screen and across social media. So it's
Oh, definitely we'll have an
bees,
episode on the influence of art. Or how bees have influenced art. Yes.
And there's all sorts of bee motifs in contemporary fashion. So the bee, the symbol of royalty and power, so the bee is a symbol in royalty and power in fashion.
Right.
Right. And this and also there's a recent trend of doing bee-related decor, home decor.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
I have, yes.
Yeah, I don't know, you want to talk about that a little bit? It's kind of frustrating me a little bit because everywhere I go, I see hexagonal tiles.
Yeah, I guess that's because, you're paying attention to something that you work with. If you worked with,
but it's been like
if you were a
now.
surfer, you would probably see surf, like wavy lines everywhere, and you say, "Oh man, there's another." Looking around this room, I guess maybe behind you there's a bit of a pattern there that might be hexagonal, but like if you were a pie maker, it'd be round circles that you would see everywhere. No, I kind of agree with you. It used to be the domain of beekeepers that you'd walk into a beekeeper's house, like a professional, commercial, or longtime hobby beekeeper, and everywhere you look would be some trinket or some mirror that would have, you look at yourself in the mirror and you got hexagons flashing back at you, or the tiles as you come into the house are hexagonal. That's true.
Right. So another article by mineraltiles.com. So they're a mineral website. So what's trending? This was written in 2021.
Okay.
So a little bit.
No, it's recent. Yeah, it's recent enough.
So what's trending? Hexagonal tiles in interior design.
Okay.
So hexagonal tile patterns are making a huge headline in interior design industry. Now that the rectangular and the square and diamond-shaped tiles are considered old school and traditional, more and more homeowners are getting closer to such chic and bespoke shapes.
Bespoke. Is that B-E-Y, bespoke?
No, just the regular one.
Okay.
Deriving inspirations from ancient honeycomb style, this pattern plays quite versatile and timeless. It's quite versatile and timeless. Whether it's the industrial, rustic, mid-century, modern, contemporary, or in traditional style, these tiles fit one for all. So there's some pictures now.
Okay.
I'll play it on there for the videocasters, but I'll describe for the audio people here. So we have the hexagonal swirl blue porcelain tile.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they kind of interlock. They
interlock.
kind of go over top of each other.
And they don't look
like a video game.
That's right. They don't really look like hexagons until you kind of look.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, the picture you're showing us even has some kind of a honeybee in the center of the photo there, too.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. If it's, it's the typical cartoony bumblebee, with a lot of yellow and black.
So the next one we have here is the hexagon multicolor porcelain tile. I think they're all porcelain. But yeah, this one is the traditional hexagonal shape, but this is all. I like this one.
Yeah, I do too. That's very nice.
You got blue, brown, yellow, green, white, and they're kind of just scattered all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you can overdo it, though. Could you imagine if you had that on the floor and then the wall with this other kind of artsy hexagonal designs? Like how much can you put in a room that before you're starting to get dizzy or throwing up?
And yeah, in the picture they do have a white background.
Yes,
and you would probably have to have a plain.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And
and then the side sapphire hexagonal tile.
Yeah,
and this is blue like sapphire, and these is for your black backsplash.
Yeah, in a kitchen or a bathroom.
Yeah, in kitchen, bathroom, yeah. But I don't know, there's just a bunch of them. But I've noticed, like, so there's been a lot of new construction in Calgary. And if you ever go down to some of the new buildings, even the new central library, you go to the bathrooms or even a lot of their other areas.
And they have beehives sitting in there.
They should have beehives in there.
No, they shouldn't.
Call
But go
me.
ahead. No beehives.
But
We have enough beehives in the city.
Not yet.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have
yours. You got to keep yours outside of town, right?
I keep mine outside of town.
Yeah, as you should.
But I'm going to help others to keep them inside of town.
Yeah, well, watch who you help. You know,
Okay,
we
yeah.
want the right kind of people that are going to take care of the bees and not just do it because you told them to.
No, you're right. But so yeah, you'll find tiles all over the place, hexagonal designs everywhere, and especially in high-end areas. I've noticed high-end restaurants, bars.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess and why I'm frustrated is because I feel like they're gonna wear out the hexagon.
And then there's going to be a backlash.
Then it's gonna be like a rectangle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, people are, it's not trendy anymore. Well, what's the next shape?
Yeah.
Triangles?
Triangles.
Yeah.
Nah, I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. That'd be horrible for tile people. My brother was a tile. That's what we started out.
Oh,
doing
yeah?
Tiles. Yeah, I hated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, mixing
Don't
mud,
like it?
carrying tiles.
Yeah.
That was my job.
Okay.
Yeah. But, any tile person. Well, Robert, worker in Hive, he was actually a tileman.
No, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but maybe he doesn't want anybody else to know that. So
Sorry.
we'll cut that part out of this conversation. Anyway, this has been great.
I'll just blur the name.
Okay, go ahead, blur.
It's already in the editing.
Oh,
But
no,
I'll
no.
say that-
No, don't blur anything.
Okay,
I think
you were
it's
just
all
joking?
good.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
just
okay,
joking.
okay.
Yeah, don't take me that seriously. But I feel like we covered a lot of ground today.
We
a lot
did.
of interesting topics.
We did. And like I said, I do want to talk about the kind of the more, like we could do a whole episode on the influence on bees on culture and art.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. You've got it. We will.
Yeah.
That's certainly going to be one coming up. I'm thinking that for next week's episode, what we might try to do is talk finally about some of the plants that bees work on to make honey.
Okay.
And my favorite one is blooming right now here in the West and in parts of the East too, and that's sweet clover.
Sweet clover.
Sweet clover is an amazing plant. It came into North America as a weed. For years and years, it was considered noxious, and farmers were fined if it grew on their property. Then all of a sudden they realized that, hey, it's a really good thing. Anyhow, it's a great honey plant, one of the best in the world, and there's so much. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's
No.
one of the best.
One of the best honey-producing plants.
It's the one with the white little bulb.
No, this is the tall, scraggly-looking.
Oh, I don't know if I could. So it's different from the other clover.
Right. It's absolutely different from the others. So sweet clover, 2 words, sweet clover, comes in white and in yellow, but mostly we see yellow out here in the western prairies. And it gets to be as tall as 2 meters or so and very scraggly looking.
I see.
But
It looks kind of like canola.
It may be in the
You might
distance, in
mistake
a
it.
field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope nobody mistakes it for canola, but it is a fantastic honey plant, and there's so much to know about it. It's just going to be fun. It'll be fun to talk about maybe that and some other plants too, just to, it's summer. It's summer here. The bees are working. What are they working on? Fence posts? Sometimes they do.
They do, yeah, sometimes they do.
Sometimes it seems like it. That's an old saying among beekeepers. When you don't know where the honey's coming from, you look around, you don't see any flowers, and yet they're making tons of honey. You say, well, it must be from the fence posts. Anyway, this has been great. I'm Ron, and you are?
Bidzina.
Yeah, and we're going to probably wrap up here.
We're going to wrap up, yeah. Minute, I think we've been going for an hour and a half now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really great. Thanks everybody for being here, and look at our show notes when you get an opportunity to, because there will be a link to that paper that we mentioned, and maybe a few other things, little goodies hiding there that you're going to want to see. But meanwhile, take care. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.